All right.
So what we doing today, Martin?
Well, last week we did say that we were going to talk about a crisis, which we'll do next week.
Yes.
But I swapped things around on a whim. On a whim.
A whim.
A whim. Cool whip. So today we're going to be talking about ADHD and creativity, and before you kind of like go, oh no, I'm not a creative person. I don't paint or sculpt. This is a broader sense of creativity, because you can be a creative thinker, you can be a creative problem solver,
dancer, writer.
You can be
hobbyist.
A creative accountant. You can be a creative cook. You can be a creative
absolutely
problem solver at work. So
there's a lot. There's like, it tends to be like the tend to like pin creative people into a kind of a narrow pigeonhole, but actually it's way wider. It's a big freaking pigeonhole.
It is. It's
a big pigeonhole.
It's a hole for the size of a massive prehistoric sized pigeon.
Yeah,
if you can imagine, like a emu sized pigeon.
Pigeonosaurus.
Oh yeah, lovely. I'm liking that. You know what? If we had fans that did fan art, I would say I'd like to see that, a Pigeonosaurus. Anyway, so let's go to the place where the distractions are landmarks and the detours are the main roads. Welcome to ADHDville.
Head bobs. Meet the gang, because the boys are here. Boys to entertain you. Boys to entertain, boys to entertain, boys to entertain, boys to entertain you.
With stories of ADHD. Stories of ADHD.
Okay, I suppose we should introduce ourselves at this point. Yes, do that. Hello, my name is Meryl Streep, and when I'm not collecting Oscars to decorate my potting shed, I like to do impersonations of Paul Thompson doing a podcast about ADHD.
Wow. And I'm George Clooney, and I am an actor that is currently portraying the ADHD known as Martin West, who was diagnosed with the combined ADHD poo-poo platter in 2013. Yeah.
Yes. So that's like the epitome, George, the epitome of method acting, because you're like the spitting image of Martin West right now before my very eyes.
I know, right? Yeah, I know. Me, George Clooney, with the magic of Hollywood makeup, has now become more attractive and become Martin. I know.
That's miraculous. Okay, so
we start off, as always, here at the town. Not at the town hall, because we got kicked out of town hall. We start off, as always, at the King's Agitated Head pub in ADHDville, at the table at the back, where we, the ex-mayors of ADHDville, take care of business.
Yes, we do.
And I would like to say that if you haven't already hit that subscribe button or the like button or something, or if there's a button,
it helps us.
Press
it. The lords of the algorithms, they love that kind of nonsense.
They do.
Lords,
all right, so let's go and talk about ADHD and creativity. But where shall we go? Where shall we go?
I think are we going downtown, Martin?
We are, because that's where all the creative people. That's a great idea, because that's where all the creative people hang out.
It's where the cool.
They're always in the downtown area.
Yeah.
So let's jump in the tractor and head downtown.
Yes.
Budge up. Indicator on. Light. Mirror. pull out.
Savvy creators.
Oh, all right. So let's talk about creativity.
Yes, let's do that. Let's do that.
You know what? I do want to kind of. I mean, okay. So at the fundamental level, I think creativity is just finding one thing, and then finding something else, and then you can mix them up and then create a new thing. So so in a very, I mean, like, it's just like, oh man, I feel like I should know what creativity is because that's what I do, but yet I find myself slightly floundering in its
I think
sense.
because probably creativity is not that easy to define, so it's not, it doesn't have like clear borders. I do know that, like my girlfriend, she will say that she's not a creative person, and I've always told her that she is because she dresses very creatively. She's creative minded, so it doesn't necessarily what you do, but it's your way of being is creative. Then whatever you happen to do with that way of being is is another thing,
right? So
I suppose it's spirited. Your spirit, your like your soul is creative. Soul and spirit is creative. Then if that evolves into sculpting, or whether it evolves in needlework or knitting jumpers, or creative in the kitchen, or a chef, so be it. Wherever it goes, it's limitless,
right? Because our ADHD brains are wired differently, and that generally means that we have to problem solve in a different way, because our a neurotypical brain will problem solve one way, but our brains, like, they seem to be a lot more flexible and comfortable with kind of going outside of the norms,
totally,
because we ourselves feel outside of the norm. So our brains have these kind of like this crazy ability to kind of think in a creative way. It's nuts, really.
I mean, I think generally I don't know, when I find, even if I've just met them, but I've just bumped into and I've started chatting with someone who I instinctively think is neurodiverse, the conversation is almost automatically spontaneous and, like, a kind of a bit crazy and borderless and agile.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
No.
And so I think, and as you say, it's almost like it's almost like there's a logic to it, because we had to be agile because we're always trying to find our way through a neurotypical world, and so it's almost like a logic says that we had to be creative in our thinking.
Right. You know what? I was. Yeah, that is absolutely spot on. And I was just thinking as you were saying that there is a really nice community part to it, and I think because ADHD or neurodivergent people tend to gravitate towards each other. So your friends tend to be that way, and if your friends are creative too, as you say, there's that kind of dialogue where you can start bouncing ideas around in a much more kind of in a very free way, and you can end up with some amazing things happen out of a little, out of just two people.
Just, and that's my personal one of my personal joys top 3, if not top 1 of my personal. One of the things I get most of my joy and stimulation from is creative chat, creative discussions, usually with someone who's neurodiverse.
Yeah, it is like
usually.
I have this thought, and the person goes, "Oh yeah, I like that. But how about if we do this? Oh yeah, I like that. How about if we add this? Oh yeah, I like that." And it just gets better and better and bigger and bigger, and it's amazing.
Exactly. Which actually is actually what you're just describing there is like the kind of core of what it means to do a really good brainstorming session. That you are just had a natural people that are really good at brainstorming are just really good at being spontaneous and taking an discussion in whichever direction comes to mind,
Right. And it's also big. It's also because I've been in so many brainstorms over the years that actually sometimes being neurodiverse doesn't help because like the traditional brainstorm I've been in a lot where you're all in a meeting room and there's about I don't know 8 or 10 of you or whatever, and there's someone at the front with bits of paper and a marker, and everyone's like shouting ideas out. And I find those like the worst way to brainstorm, because it's like because you have to kind of shout. If you shout out an idea and that idea just falls on its ass, then you kind of like feel, Jesus, that's not bad. I'm going to shut up now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm just going to shut up and sit.
That's when the kind of rejection sensitivity comes in, right?
Right.
She's like, oh fuck, I think I've got a really good idea in my brain, but it's really out there and I don't know if I want to put my head above the parapet. And then you're like, oh fuck it, I'm going to say it. And then you say it and it's like, oh wow. And it's usually often, it's a winner,
Mm-hmm. Oh, I've said some terrible, bad, terrible ideas.
For example, come on,
brainstorm.
you have our ears.
I can't. It's so no, because it's so bad taste. It is.
Oh, okay.
It's the kind of comment where I kind of go, oh, it's like this, and then everyone turns around and kind of looks at you and goes, what the fuck?
Hell.
I go,
right. Yeah.
Is that the time? I must be going. Jesus Christ. Yeah. So I mean, like, and you think of, because obviously I've done a lot of these in ad agencies. So you think of ad agencies as being this kind of hotbed of creative people all in a room, but it's just like it's a horrible place.
I'm glad you said that, because I've actually found that very often, as you say, you think, oh, ad agency or design agency, marketing consultant, you think you have to be a hotbed of spontaneity. Actually, there's a hell of a lot of egos, and you could be sure that when it comes to egos are out, and there's nothing worse. The biggest enemy of brainstorming is our egos. And I've been in a situation like the boss was,
is that
I remember once there was a boss who was like leading the brainstorming.
Right, it's generally like the loudest person in the room.
Yeah.
Tends to get their ideas up.
Yeah.
But anyway, so that's why I like working with 2s and 3s, like a little tiny group.
Right.
People can come up with some really great ideas.
Yeah. I generally found when the boss is involved in the brainstorm, it's a nightmare, because everyone's thinking about, I want to say this, but I don't want to, stamp all over her ego or his ego. So generally, a lot when the boss is involved, that everyone's like,
Paul.
Yeah.
Worse than that is when the client is in the brainstorm.
No, that's
Oh,
I've never done a brainstorm with a client. I don't think.
Oh, fucking hell, they're the worst.
That sounds like a nightmare.
They're the worst.
Yeah, but that doesn't work.
Oh, they're just appalling.
It's like the worst for me is when a client is on a photo shoot. That's a bad one.
Oh, the client has always been on every photo shoot, and you know what? You can always tell when the photo shoot's going really well when the client is right at the back of the room and they're on their laptop doing emails, and they're not even participating, because that's great, because you're obviously Martin, you're doing good, and they feel happy and comfortable, and they're just back there. I want to get back to like ADHD, hyperfocus. That was for me the catalyst, if you like, of being a creative person. Like, as far back as I can remember, I would get out a piece of paper and I would draw trains, and I would draw, stuff, boats or whatever. And that was like, and then my entire world, I would just be absorbed in that drawing thing. And I was like, oh, this is a nice space. I like this space.
Yeah.
Of when you're just
for me, absorbed. It was often a meditative state. I could zone out when I do the drawing, definitely. But I've got something before that phase. I've got something here about something here about hypervigilance and general observatory skills, because I think I was hypervigilant. It also, what it did, is good and bad sides of being hypervigilant, because I was a bit anxious all the time. But it also made me hyper observant. So I see things, right? I saw things, I observed them, and I, kept them in my head. And so when it comes to drawing something, I can draw, a person or a car or a train or whatever it is, because I've observed it, almost obsessively.
You know what?
Consciously or not.
I've had this thought which has been around my head for the last 40 years, which is that you and I, Paul, when we went to art college and we drawing stuff, and then when we were doing our jobs, our everyday jobs, when we became designers, if someone asked you to draw a tap, for example, you would have to draw it out of a memory, right? Because
absolutely,
there was no internet to go and look and see what a tap looked like. So you would have to look at, you went around the world looking a lot, because
I remember my first task as a designer, but literally my very first day as a designer, and I had the client looking over my shoulder. I was asked to do a drawing of a man on a roof repairing some tiles with magic markers.
Wow.
Right? Yeah. And it's like, oh, and I just did it. I'd love to see that drawing now, though. I don't know. When I say did it, I mean, did it really bad?
It's going to be terrible. You'll be like, oh my God, this is appalling.
Yeah, right. What's that?
I know. I occasionally come across an old piece of art, and I'm like, oh my good God.
Yeah.
But hey, what? It's just reminded me of my first piece of creative work that I did when I left art college and I was in the industry.
Right.
I had to do a clothes label, a design for some fashion brand, right? And I'd done this kind of fairly neat little piece of artwork. It was tiny. It was about like an inch by about an inch square kind of thing. And the boss had just got this new fandangled fax machine installed.
Swanky.
And I was like, what's a fax machine? And he said, you can send images over the telephone. And I was like, no, that's insane.
That is insane.
And he said, yeah, look. And then he just kind of like got this piece of paper and then he fed it through the fax machine. And then what came out of the fax machine was like a digitized, like 8-bit version of it. And I went, oh, I can do that. So then I got my little fashion label and then I faxed it to myself.
Nice.
And got this kind of blocky, pixely
that sounds
artwork
great.
back. And I went, yes, this is amazing. Yes.
That sounds brilliant.
Yeah, the thought process was good, but I'm sure that the actual end result, if I looked at it now, would be like, God, this is a fucking dog's dinner. But but I liked the thinking of it. I like the creative thought.
Well, there was a thing. Well, let's not go too long into discussion about where the state of play is now. But it's almost too easy now to create with computers and stuff. You know, it was much more reliant on, you know. Then again, it's not, because there was less. It was easier. It's easier now, but then it is. You're not blocked by, oh God, I've got this idea, but how am I going to do it? You don't have that anymore. You can pretty much do anything. Whereas when we started out, it's like, oh, I've got this idea, but holy moly, how am I going to actually do that? You know, other than faxing it to myself.
And this,
nice though.
So there's this other thought, which is like, and I see it on TikTok as well a lot, which is like, someone will pick up they'll have a new creative bee in their bonnet, and they'll want to kind of do art or knit or and some new creative hobby. And then they'll kind of like get into it for a while, and then they'll do creative stuff, and then they'll kind of burn out or stop, lose interest, and then they'll go, oh no, I've spent the last 2 months doing this creative thing, and now I seem to have dropped it. And then the cycle continues with something else, like, they'll start up another creative pursuit.
Depends. For some people, the final product isn't necessarily the biggest motivation. It's the doing. For some people, is enough, which is fine.
Right. Yes,
like creative gardening. We didn't mention that at the beginning, but gardening. I love the idea of creative gardening. I'm kind of quite keen on that.
All right. Yeah. So I think I personally I don't give myself a hard time if I do some drawings and stuff, and then I just drop that, and then it goes quiet for a bit, and then I start to do some writing or something. I might do that for a bit, and then that will drop, and then I might do something else, and then I might come back around to doing some drawing at some other point. So I don't mind the fact that I just almost like hop from one creative lily pad to another creative lily pad, and
I've found, I'm not sure about you, but since I got diagnosed with ADHD, and the consequent unmasking, since then, my creative juices are just flying. Like now that I don't feel like I have to limit myself or suppress myself, my authentic, authentic Paul, that is showing up artistically and creatively much more than it ever did in my life. It's really, really showing up a lot and really enjoying my creative side more than I ever did before.
Is it because, well, part of it, I tend to think is like, oh, I'm ADHD and I have a creative brain, and therefore I allow myself that I'm an authentic creative person. Therefore, I can just go and do my own thing.
Yeah. Well, I just think, the gloves are off.
Be mad. Yeah.
The shackles, the gloves are off. It's like, fuck it.
Right.
I'm going to do that. I think I mentioned to you last week, I've decided I'm going to write a book, a novel, which I'd never thought of before.
I was going to bring that up, and I'm glad that you did, because in a true "we are twins" kind of way, right. I have for the last year I've been not writing a book but building a book out, like doing research and building plot, and building characters, and just building this thing. And then so for the last year I've been working towards doing a book.
Okay, yeah, I'm doing the same thing at the moment. I'm not committing myself to writing a book, but I am building it up. Researching where I need to, like being playful with it. It's like, oh, could it start here? Could it start there? There's a really someone said about creative writing, actually, Hilary Mantel, that wrote the Wolf Hall and the other, the Tudor historical novel books. She said she did a masterclass thing on the internet about creative writing, and she said, what if, for example, you started the Little Red Riding Hood story with the words, "It was dark inside the wolf's mouth." Oh, that's good. So at the moment, right, I'm thinking about it's like, how can you be playful and creative with the structure? Does it have to start here? Does it have to end there? How is the middle? Do I have to have a plan? Douglas Adams, who wrote, as you know, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, he said he never had a plan when he started writing a book. So I thought, that's cool.
Yes. There are apparently two ways that you can write. One is where you have no idea and you are literally just, or you have some vague idea, like there's some, you're kind of working towards something that is going to happen, but it's an adventure to yourself as you're writing it, or
totally,
or you plan absolutely everything out, like it's all just kind of, it's just very planned.
I've basically come where I am at the moment with it. I don't want to tell the world about what it's about, because I've started far too many projects and not finished them. So I don't want to spout it out, the idea, too much. But I have what used to be the ending is now the start. I've got that far.
All right.
Which completely literally flips it, but it also makes you think about it differently, the whole story.
Right.
Like, oh, what if it started where you thought it ended? It's like, oh, that's interesting. And what I've come to realize at the moment, anything that stimulates it, if I can write the first paragraph, I'm away. I'll be fine with the rest of it. So it's like, it actually starts where I thought it ended. Oh, and that's fine for me,
Yeah, no, I have my start, I have my middle, I've got all the main plot points along the way. I've got most of the main characters. I even know how I know how it ends.
Right.
I'm just like fleshing little interesting bits out, just playing with it in my head. But it's weird because I don't know about you, Paul, but the thought of writing a book has always been like, what? Why? Like that seems like such a mountain to climb.
Yeah.
And why would anyone do it? And then this thought just sat in my head, like, and it just kept growing. I was like, God, this is a book, isn't it? Oh, damn it. Like, do I really want to write this book? But I just can't help but keep thinking about it.
Yeah. Well, that's always an acid test for me. If I find myself keep thinking about it, it's a goer. It's got legs, and it should go further because there's so many ideas, pop up and die. But generally, if they survive 3 weeks, it's a runner.
All right, mine's been about a year easily.
Okay,
actually,
but
you know what?
Have you actually?
The first genesis of the story was about 5 years ago. So the first thought of like, oh, a book. Oh, it could be about this. I like this. That was 5 years ago. And then I've kind of been kicking it around my brain for that long.
Wow. Have you started writing?
I did write the first 2 pages, and then I realized that I'd not done enough thinking. That I was.
It sounds like you should just write it
too early. Yeah, no, there's
book yourself into a remote hotel.
I know. I should just, like all those films, I just have to kind of go to an island somewhere so I can concentrate on writing a book and then fall in love with someone else. No,
I wrote last week the first sentence of my book.
Oh.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Which I quite like, actually.
Oh, right.
Yeah, so far.
I can tell you that the first sentence of my book is about the barnacles.
Oh, really?
Yes. Barnacles
is
the first little thing, is the first introduction.
Okay.
Is how it starts with barnacles.
I can tell you the first word of mine.
All right.
150 euros.
Oh.
It's a price.
50 euros.
It's a price. Yeah. Okay. Well, that actually leads me on a nice little segue too, actually.
Yes.
I was trying to think, my first ever, what were the first kind of thing or person or writer that actually really started to feed my imagination when I was a kid? And I was thinking about it, and I think there was probably stuff before it, but the first one that comes to mind was when I was about 9 years old, and the world of Roald Dahl books.
Oh, yeah. Nice.
Malcolm's Marvelous Medicine and, all that kind of thing. I was it blew my mind. It opened up this world of that. It kind of sparked my imagination. I thought, oh, wow, that's an interesting kind of shiny new toy to play with in my mind.
In your mind, stories. Nice little interesting imaginative stories.
Yeah. Because he was like Roald Dahl. He was mental. He just he blew apart so many. I grew up basically in kind of suburban South England, and a lot of the kind of mediocrity and kind of boredom that is quite famous for those kind of environments. And then Roald Dahl appeared in my little world. It's like, holy crap. He just breaks all the rules,
Right. Yes.
It's this one, George's Marvelous Medicine, he knocked off his grandmother and she had a mouth like a dog's bottom. Oh, yes, come on. That's what I want to hear.
Yeah, that's that's what it's all about.
She was nasty, so he tried to invent a poison to knock her off.
Wow. That's crazy.
Oh,
you know
wow.
What? Just to kind of bring it back to ADHD, there's I don't know about you, but at school I found that because I could draw and I used to draw sort of the robots and science fiction stuff, that I was picked on less. So I was a little weird kid with ADHD, but but I got respect for what I did, and I didn't get picked on. So it was like it was like not only was it a nice way to kind of hyper focus on something and escape the world, but the rest of the world seemed to value what I did. So I got this kind of like this two punch sort of thing, which meant that I could see I get value from it. Everyone around me can see value in it, and I get treated better. I'm just going to keep doing this.
Yeah. I had that, but not with art. It was with me. It was just making people laugh, like the classic, defense mechanism. Don't punch me. I'll make you laugh instead. If you don't punch me, I might make you laugh. It might be better, right? That kind of situation. That could be better. And for me, art was. I was lucky because I had an art teacher that said I actually had a talent. It was like, oh, that's great, and I was away. And that's sometimes all you need. It's like, oh, you got a talent, Paul. Oh, fantastic. Because some people don't get their creativity isn't recognised. Because there's not in that particular school in that particular year that they're at school. They don't have the teacher was actually sensitive enough or human enough to say, actually, oh, do you know you're quite creative and you should actually pursue that a bit. That doesn't always happen,
No, and especially like as we said right at the top of this, the idea of whether you're a creative person or not just seems to sit in whether you can draw and paint or not.
Yeah.
And
it's really narrow, isn't it?
When really it's, and that's why you end up with so many people going, I don't have a creative bone in my body. But they can go into the kitchen and look at a bunch of stuff that they've got in their shelves and go, well, if I combine this with this and make a sauce out of that, and then I'll just cook this up, and then I'll have a meal. You're like, well, that's just creativity, right there, just making something out of nothing.
Yeah. At school, I did with my Italian teenagers. I did a class once where we did I got them to present a story based on it was called an ode to the letter K. Because K doesn't exist in the Italian alphabet, I thought, let's celebrate the word K, the letter K. And so they were brilliant. They were like writing some really cool stuff about the letter K, koalas and kayaks and stuff. And it was brilliant. It was absolutely brilliant. And that could, I don't know if any of them will take that on, it will go any further. But, that might be, the only impetus they needed to actually think, oh, I might be good at creative writing.
That's crazy. So there's no K in the Italian alphabet.
No.
That's nuts.
No. Yeah.
I never thought about that.
So that's why I did it. I thought, oh, let's start an ode to the letter K. And it was a lot of fun.
Nice. Nice. Right. Have you got anything else that you want to add to this before we jump back in the tractor?
No, I think that's pretty. Don't make jokes. Management. Oh well, I'll just reference because we're just talking about then. Me using a sense of humor, which is a creative output.
Absolutely.
Comedy, especially UK.
Anyway,
the British comedy scene, but in America as well, and everywhere. But obviously, I'm shouting. I defend the corner for for British humour because I love it so much. But we talked just to remind you, episode 60. Go back into our other episodes. You go back to episode 60. There's a whole episode about sense of humour and how it relates to how it helps the ADHD mind.
All right. Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's just jump back into the tractor, and let's go back to the let's go to the post office.
Yes.
Let's get to the post office, and we'll open up the mail.
Let's get back in the tractor.
That's it. Yes. I do like how it starts first time, every time.
Every time. It's very reliable.
Every bloody time.
Okay. So your feedback is vital to us, and we might read out your feedback on a future podcast. Like this one from, I think we got something, the postcard from someone.
From Alexandra, the official ADHD town crier.
/ mascot.
So last week you were talking a bit about Scottish, and we had a bit of a Scottish quiz.
Yes.
And you talked about tartan.
Yes.
And in her lovely comment on the YouTube's, in amongst all of that good stuff, she says, I'm a huge fan of Fraser of Lovett clan.
What's that? I've never heard of that. Fraser of Lovett.
Right, which is the clan. It's the clan in Outlander. Is that the film?
Okay.
There could be only one.
Okay.
You know that film?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Outlander. So that's where that's from. And she also says, great catching up, guys. Looking forward to the next one. So this is the next one.
This is the next one.
And this
literally.
Is what we did. This is what we did.
This is our output.
This is the output for our Wednesday.
This is the output. Yeah. This is the
right.
What's that expression that I hate at the moment? This is the what's it called? Content creators. What does that even mean? Content creators.
We create content.
Create content. I mean, that's so like content. Is that all you can say? Content creator.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway,
this is a piece of content.
Age. Yeah.
All right. So next week we will be talking about ADHD and handling conflict.
Yes.
But yeah,
we don't mean wars. Well, it could be.
Right. So that just leaves it for me to say the ADHDville is delivered fresh. Oh, there's the music. Finally,
there it is.
The band's turned up. They were late. Jesus, guys, come on. ADHDville is delivered fresh every Tuesday to all purveyors of fine podcasts. Please subscribe to the pod and rate us most magnificent, and feel free to correspond at will in the comments down there. But wait, somewhere. There is more. If you wish to see our beautiful faces, sally forth to the YouTubes and the TikTokies. And you can also pick up a quill and email us at ADHDville@gmail.com. But in the meantime, be fucking kind to yourself.
And I beseech you, fellow ADHDers, fare thee well with gladness of heart.
There, says the mayor. That's
short bursts of bagpipes.
Short burst.